We make the streams louder.
What's up guys, so today we're actually working on the RSX again. Got a pretty cool install video. We're going to be putting a Aem wideband gauge in it. The car is ready to get tuned, and the reason I'm putting a wideband in it is kind of just like to protect my investment, you know, so at least I could see if the car really leans out at a track day or something like that. I could just kill it right away. So I guess we're gonna just do kind of like an unboxing of what we have. The actual gauge, the wideband gauge. I put the black bezel white face on it. It just looks better in my interior. There's other ones here you could choose from. You put a black face on it with like a silver bezel, whatever works with your interior. You have the actual wideband sensor, so it's a Bosch sensor. Your harness that goes from your sensor to the back of your gauge, and then you have your 4 wires here, which are basically gonna power up your sensor. So you have a black ground, a red power, and then you have 2 more wires, which most of the time are optional. Now I'm gonna be wiring this sensor into my car a little differently, so we might be using one of these. I'm not gonna explain it just yet, just in case it doesn't work the way I want. But when I do wire it in, I'll give you guys more detailed information on how to wire it in. So if you are just using it just as, you know, just your like a display to see your air fuels, all you need to power and ground, very simple. I'll show you where I'm going to tap into the RSX for our power and ground. And then we just have a autometer gauge pod, very simple. I got it off of Jegs. So first thing we got to do, jack the car up, and then we'll show you how we're going to start wiring everything up. That felt a little weird. I feel more comfortable talking to you guys like this. I actually feel like I'm talking to you like that. That felt like a infomercial or something. So we got the car jacked up. The reason I'm saying I'm gonna wire this up a little differently than how you probably would is because I'm gonna try, I'm not gonna say I'm gonna succeed, I'm gonna try to see if I can try to trick the K-Pro into thinking that I still have a regular, you know, air fuel sensor in it rather than the Aem wideband. The reason I say I'm gonna try to trick the computer to thinking it because first of all, I'm cheap. I know I'm not the only one. There's other people out there that don't want to spend money when they don't have to. So I'm gonna actually take out the first O2 sensor, like, you know, the upper one, the upstream one. I'm gonna take that out. The reason I'm gonna take that out, one, is because I don't feel like paying money to weld a bung in, because I don't know how to weld. So don't judge me for that. 2, I spoke with my tuner and he said he can actually tune the car with like disabling that first O2 sensor. So now the reason I'm gonna want to trick the K-Pro is at least so I can get the car, you know, started up and kind of drive it, not drive it, but get it to, you know, to get tuned. And in case the car is looking for like a signal from the upstream O2 sensor, I'm going to use the white wire, which is like a 0 to 5 volt. It's not a reference, but it's like it looks for a 0 to 5 volt signal from the Aem gauge. We're going to tap it into the air fuel pin on the ECU. Basically just trying to give the K-Pro that signal it's looking for, and if all works out, it's gonna the K-Pro is gonna think the sensor's still in there, but it's reading the Aem wideband, and it'll be a win-win. So that's why we have the car jacked up. I'm gonna take out the primary O2 sensor. I'm gonna screw in the wideband into that one, and then from there we'll start running our wiring. sensor installed. I ran the wiring through the inside of the car. The way I ran it was actually in through here. Let's see if we can show you guys. If you look behind the gas pedal, there's like this black plastic trim. Take this out. I just put it back, but you can see all the wiring I have back here. This is for my fuse box and everything. I have the fuse box in the glove box, but here's our plug from the O2 sensor we just unplugged. So I pulled it through this grommet. You know what, I'm just gonna take this out for you guys. So here's that grommet. I used this grommet to run most of the wires I had when I did my fuse box tuck, so you'll see it. I'll see if I show you guys a clip in the engine bay. But here's our wire from the O2 sensor. So this is ran up over the column. It's gonna be hard to see up there, but it's over the column. It ran across over the pedal assembly, and then it came down to right here. As you can see, everything is all wound up with some zip ties kind of tucked out of the way, and from there we went up. So when you're doing this, you're going to want to take the whole bottom shielding all under here. You're going to take the little cover off from here under your steering wheel. Take off the little what do you have, like your sunroof and your mirror buttons. Take all that out. Take out your weather stripping on the side so you can get, you know, access around here. The good thing with the RSX is that it's not connected down here, so you don't have to like fish wires. You can actually just kind of slip them through like that and then just slide it in, and you'll be able to work them all into this channel right here. So we have both of our harnesses tucked back here. We have them up here just hanging so we can start test fitting the pillar. And here's the other harness. I already extended the white wire that we're going to probably run to our K-Pro to tap into our signal, but here's our power, the red wire, and then our ground. We're probably just going to ground to a bolt down here. The power, we're actually going to tap into the fuse box. We're going to look for a 12 volt fuse, a switched 12 volt. So that means, you know, when you turn your key on, and this is I'm going to use like an inline fuse. I think that's what it's called. I can't remember. So which means it's going to be oh no, it's a fusible link. We're going to use a fusible link on a 10 amp fuse. That's what AEM calls for. So we're going to go under here, find our 10 amp fuses, see which one is a fusible link, which maybe we could find like the cigarette lighter one or something. Tap into there, and we should have power already. Marked basically where we want to test fit it, or we already test fitted it, so we got a line. So now we're all squared up on where we're going to want it. What we have to do now is put 4 holes into our gauge pod first, just so that way we can transfer the holes we made into here onto our pillar. So the hole size we have to use is a 3/16. We're going to drill 4 holes on each corner, and those holes are going to be, for what we use to mount the little tabs onto the pillar. So that's what we're going to do right now. So now we got the holes made onto our gauge pod. So we're going to put the gauge pod on the pillar make 4 dots so we know where to drill the holes onto our pillar, and we're all done. We got the 4 holes made on our pillar now. You know, technically now you just throw this on, put your little pop pins in it, and it's all to go. I'm probably gonna redo mine because you can see my plasti dip is actually starting to peel off of this when I painted this a while ago. So I'm probably just gonna peel this off, redo it, and then throw the pillar on. So now it's time to start feeding some power and some ground to our gauge. So right now we're at the fuse box under the car. I found a 10 amp fuse that gets power when it's switched. Now what I mean by switch is I'm going to explain it to you right now. Here's our fuse box right under the dash. We're going to be using this 10 amp right here. Oh, I'm blocking the light. The 4th one right there. Now the 4th one, if you look at your little diagram under your panel, would be this one. So your alternator fuse, 10 amp. Now I have a test light and I'm going to explain to you what switched means. Let's see if I can put this, hold the camera. So you can use any test light. Right now we're going to check power with the ignition off. As you can see, the test light isn't lighting up when I touch the tips of the fuse. If I go to the one next to it, which is another 10 amp, see that test light just went on? So I got 12 volts even with the key off. The next fuse has no power. So now we're going to put the key in. The key is still off. And I got no power. So we still have no power with the key off. So now if I hold this here and I turn the key to accessory, see how I just got power? Then we shut the key off and I lose power. So that's a switch 12 volt that you only get power to this fuse when your ignition is on. So that's the one we're going to use for our red wire for our 12 volt source on our gauge. And then for our ground, you could just look under your dash anywhere you want, anywhere you see a good bolt to bare metal. Just put a ring terminal on that black wire for your ground. You can ground it right there. So like I told you guys before, I'm going to be using an inline fuse to do this. That's the way I would recommend it. I don't know if it's the best way because, I mean, I'm not a professional at wiring, but I have good, knowledge of it. So the reason why you want to keep a fuse in it is just in case something happens to that circuit, at least the fuse is going to go and not everything else tied around it. I'll tell you what exactly I'm going to be using in case you're not sure what a fusible circuit is. So this is what it is. This is what they call a ADA circuit. It's not a fusible circuit, my bad. So is that exactly what the name is? We're going to be adding a circuit. We're going to be putting our red wire, butt connecting it right here. We're going to pull that fuse out of the fuse box, and we're going to put this in its place, which you see, it looks just like a fuse, but these come in different sizes for different fuses. So make sure you get the right one. The one for the RSX under the dash is an ATM. Don't ask me what that means. I'm not sure what it is. I just know that's the size fuse we need to use. So then in its place, you put this into the fuse box, and in the first slot, you put your 10 amp. For the first 10 amp that was in there for the alternator one, and then the second one we're going to put another 10 amp fuse, and that's going to be what our gauge is fused to. So what we're going to do is pull our fuse out. Okay. I'm going to put this fuse in here. It's a tight fit, so just try to push it on as best as you can. Okay, so now we got our fuse in. Not even. Okay, and then we're going to put our fuse right back into that location. Let's see if we turn it around the other way. Okay, so that's pushed in all the way. Actually, yeah. Actually, you know what? Just so we can get to everything, let's put the second fuse in right now. So we got both of our fuses in. It's pretty snug fit, and it's it almost looks like they're too close together, so it would have been better if they maybe spaced these out. I don't know, but they're in there. Just make sure they're both in snug and they're making full connection. So now we're gonna put this into our spot right next to it. All right, so now that's tapped into our fuse box. We got 2 fuses controlling it. All we have to do is get our red wire, connect it into here, crimp it, and we have power, and then we just connect our ground. And at this point, you'd be done, unless you were doing like what I'm doing, tapping into your ECU, or if you want to use the blue wire to tap for data logging. If you have an extra bong on your header, and you're just using this just to read, you're done. After this, you could turn the key and it should work. If you wanted, you know, it's actually a good idea. Just make sure you're getting power to that little fuse. So we're just gonna put the test light onto the end of the butt connector, see if we have power. If there's no power, turn the key on, we have power, then we know we're all set. So if we did this right, we should have no power at this right now. Okay, we have nothing. So let's put the key in it. And turn the key. Perfect. Now we got power. Turn the key off. No power. That's a good connection right there. That's a good point. All right, so we got our power already all buttoned up. A ground, I found it all the way on the left side, kind of on top of like where the hood latch is. There's like a factory ground there. That's where I grounded the bolt. You'll see it's a whole bunch of grounds, you know, just connected to one bolt. I'll see if I can give you a look. You see where that white connector is up top? There's like a red wire back there and a black one next to the red wire. The black wire is the ground I used. So you just look behind this white connector and you'll find a factory ground. Now I'm basically going to show you guys what you would see if you just powered and ground the sensor right now. It would just start right up. Here's our sensor. We're going to put the key in, accessory on. Okay, so our sensor is working. So I'll try to start the car. I don't think the car is going to run that great, so I only have it running for a little bit just because there's no air fuel reading going to the ECU right now. You can even see our sensor just went to complete 0 because it's not picking anything up. Alright, so you can see it's reading. The car is trying to lean itself out because it has no air fuel. So that's exactly what I thought was going to happen. The car has no reading going to the ECU, letting you know what the air fuel is, if it's getting any fuel, what to make sure there's nothing. So now the car has no idea what to do, which is why it's going to start probably misfiring, backfiring, doing all that good stuff. So that's why I shut it off right away. This is where my idea is going to come into play, to where I'm going to try to, somebody's cutting the grass right now. I'm going to try to just tap into the ECU where the primary O2 sensor pin is. Give it the signal from the AEM gauge. That way the ECU is seeing a signal, and it's basically like it is the factory O2 sensor, except I just have you know, a reading off of it. That's what we're going to try now. When we get down to ECU, I'm going to explain to you which pins to actually, well, there's only going to be one pin I'm going to tap, and if that's the right one, we should see it. I'll hook my K-Pro up. We should see air fuel reading in the K-Pro, and that same reading should be on our gauge. One thing I forgot to mention to you guys with the whole gauge pod and the pillar thing, I put it back together. You're gonna have to drill a hole in the inside the actual pillar, not just the little holes to hold the pod, but in the pillar so you can feed the wires through. I didn't remember to show you guys that on video. I just had to do it right now, so let me show you what I mean. So I just redid my whole, you know, pillar, replasti dipped it. It looks a lot better. We got our gauge pod on, but you can see that hole inside the gauge pod. It's right there. Just drill a hole, you know, a decent size you can fit both wires through, and just make sure, you know, you line it up straight, and that's where you're going to feed your wires through into your gauge pod. So now we're going to put this on the car, put the gauge in it, and we should be all set. Alright, it's been some time, guys. I've been messing with this for a while now. My initial idea didn't work, so I had to do more research and try to figure it out. I'm pretty sure I figured it out, and I'm gonna do my best to try to explain it to you guys, because it can get a little confusing, but the good thing is we have, you know, a visual, so that's a good thing. We can actually show you to what I'm talking about. So let me explain to you. I got it working now. It's working, but the car's not running right, obviously. The tune was based off of my primary O2 sensor. That's how, you know, the tuner did it. And now that that primary O2 sensor isn't there, the tune is just all over the place. It doesn't know what to do. So even though the car is reading the AEM sensor. It's not tuned. See, I don't know if that's making sense. It's not tuned off that sensor, so it's not giving it the same feedback like the original sensor did, which is why it needs to get retuned. All I wanted this gauge to do is to read, and I got it to read exact to match K-Pro. So I'll show you guys. I can't start the car because I just tried starting it and the car just backfires and pops and it does all that good stuff. So with the ignition on, the K-Pro and the sensor will actually read together, and I'll try my best to show you guys. I don't know how well the camera is going to pick it up. So ignition is off, sensor is off. I'm going to try to show you guys what the sensors are doing. So here it's on. We're reading 14.7, and I'm going to have to restart my K-Pro. Okay, 13.8, 13.7, and here you can see it's at 13, and it's going to start going all the way, boom, to 17, which is what that's basically maxed at. That's all the way at 17, probably 18. So they're working in sync, as you can see. It's just not tuned right, or it needs to get tuned. All right, so as you can see, they're both reading. I'm gonna try my best to show you guys the wiring in order to get it to work. It's kind of a tight fit here, but I'll shine some light and explain to you what wire you need to tap where. All right, so don't mind all the mess of wires. This is all from my fuse box, my electric steering and all that. All you need to focus on is this white wire right here, which is the white wire we extended off the harness of the gauge. What this white wire taps into is onto your pin, onto your connector E. What pin was it? I forget. This is your pin 15 on your connector E, which is the one far left. This is your ELD wire. You're gonna have to cut your ELD, as I did right here. Here's the other end. Cut it, and the white wire is gonna go right into the ECU where the ELD is. Now when you do it, make sure you leave enough just in case you ever have to, connect it back. I can always just, solder them back together and we'll be fine. So I have enough. But that's where your white wire is going to go to, is to your ELD connector E, pin 15. Once you have that, now the K-Pro is going to have the signal to read. But there's one more thing you need to set up in your K-Pro, and I haven't tried it to see if that's if it's necessary, but this is what I did in order to get them to match. So when you're in your K-Pro, you're going to want to go to your options, go to settings, then you're going to go all the way to wideband input. Alright, so now from wideband input, if you're using an AEM one, there was a write-up I read, you need to use this one, which is called PLX M series. Well, first click on this tab right here to use an external wideband input, and then you're going to go to your drop down menu. If you're using like an innovative one or something, they'll give you different options, but for the AEM one there's no option, so you need to use PLX M series. So we'll click that. For your voltage off settings, you're going to put negative 0.7, and it's going to give you these voltage settings right here. That's what I had to put in, and I think you have to do it. So if I were you, I would do it anyway just to be safe, and that's how you should get them to read, not normally, but like to match, to read in sync. Other than that, guys, you're pretty much done. I'm going to give you my opinion. The best way is, if you want, don't really do it the way I did it. Spend the money, get a bung welded. You don't even have to go through half the stuff I just went through to try to make it work. Just put an extra bung, so that way the sensor is reading on its own separate circuit. You're just reading air fuel. You're not trying to data log it or anything into the ECU. You'll be done in a half hour. If you're doing it my way, you're trying to figure it out, it's a lot more involved. You have to really be careful, cut wires, splice here. If I was to do it again, I probably wouldn't. I would just spend the money and just get the bung welded, but you live and you learn, right? That's why you guys are learning from my mistakes. And if you are thinking of doing it this way, or the other reason to do it is if like let's say your upstream O2 sensor goes bad or fries out, and instead of replacing it, you just want to throw the wideband in there. This would be the case of what I just went through is what you would do. Instead of just replacing it with a factory one, get yourself like a wideband gauge sensor and all that. Take out the one that's bad, put it in there, wire it into your ELD, and then bring it together. You're gonna have to get it tuned. Also, speak with your tuner before you even attempt to do what I did. If you're just wiring it in, you don't need to, you'll be fine. But If you're gonna do it the way I did it, talk to your tuner, make sure he knows and he gives you the green light to say he can disable the O2 and all this and that, all that good stuff. So just when it comes to like disabling stuff like that, definitely consult your tuner or someone you know that they know what they're doing. Along with the information I was just giving you guys, I'm definitely gonna leave links down below to all the write-ups I read explaining to me and walking me through on basically where to find the ELD connector and all that. So I want to give those guys credit. If you want to look for the links, they'll be down below. We're all done. The gauge works. So next step is the car's gonna go get tuned on Tuesday. Today is Sunday. Today's Sunday. It's gonna go get tuned Tuesday. So look forward to that video. I basically done. Is gonna clean up all the paneling and everything, put everything back together. Gonna start shooting another video for you guys. I'm gonna probably start kicking them out a little more now because I gotta get this car ready. You guys will have to stay tuned for that one. Thanks for watching, guys. If you're new, make sure you hit like, subscribe to my channel. As much feedback as you want, all the comments. I love reading your comments and I try to get back to you guys as soon as I can. Try to get back to all you guys. So thanks for all the feedback. Thank you for supporting me. We've been doing great and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Stay motivated and keep making these streets louder, guys.